If you are an adult beginner learning the cello and your left hand consistently feels tight, tense, slow, or consistently out of tune, it probably has something to do with your entire left side system. Most adult beginners are taught where to place their fingers, but they aren't taught how the arm, wrist, hand, and fingers all work as an entire system. So they end up stretching and squeezing, which doesn't lead to your best possible cello sound and definitely doesn't lead to playing as in tune as possible and then being able to navigate the cello really easily up and down, farther down the line. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 3 most common mistakes I see in adult beginner cellists and then what you can do to rectify those mistakes. Mistake number 1, the most common mistake I see is that they aren't using the arm to support the mechanics of the hand and the fingers. So when you first set up your cello position with your left hand, what you should be doing is essentially clinging the inside of the string and then rolling the string down with your arm and then allowing the fingerboard to support the weight of your arm. So if you find yourself squeezing the string in between your fingers and your thumb in order to play a note and produce a sound, that is definitely a red flag and going to lead to a lot of problems and definitely a lot of tension. When you're first setting up your cello position, it's more of a cling against the string and a roll with your arm weight rather than a squeeze. Okay, the second most common mistake I see is that they are trying to reach notes with their fingers. So whether you're moving to a note laterally on a string side to side, or trying to do an extension, or simply just playing the next note, I often see these reaching fingers. Now, there are definitely times on the cello where we open up our hand, definitely. But in general, especially when you're starting out, you want to be thinking that the arm gets the hand where it wants to go, especially if you're moving laterally. So if you're changing strings down the cello, you want to feel that your arm is bringing your hand across the strings as though you're giving your cello a hug. You can practice this with an exercise. You walk your cello fingers down to the inside of the next string down, and then use your arm to do the same thing, the next string down. See how my arm is bringing my hand across rather than my fingers stretching and getting stuck or locking out and getting flat. So mistake number 2 is reaching with the fingers by itself rather than the arm getting the hand and fingers where they need to go. The last mistake I want to bring up is not thinking enough about the thumb and the role of the thumb. So a lot of times what happens when adult beginner cello students learn their cello position, they start learning patterns, is they subconsciously are squeezing the back of the neck with their thumb, and when they go to change fingers, they aren't thinking about what the thumb is doing. So ideally, the thumb can either hover behind the second finger or the middle finger or just touch gently. But if the thumb isn't moving up and down to follow the transition of arm weight with notes, then you're going to become sort of stuck in the exact position that you are, especially as you go down the strings too. The thumb needs to be loose and either just lightly touching or hovering a little bit so that as the arm transfers weight up and down the cello, the thumb is going with it. And that's going to release the tension in your hand. Because if your thumb and arm are the initiators of movement, then your hand and fingers will follow naturally rather than the other way around where you're forcing your fingers to move while keeping your arm and thumb stuck in place. Practice doing things with the left hand of the cello with your thumb just hovering gently behind your second finger. And that is going to also come into play with that cling and roll with the arm weight, right? If you do that I talked about in mistake number 1, you'll notice naturally that you don't even need your thumb and that you aren't squeezing because you're just using your arm weight to pull the string down. So hint, hint, all of these mistakes connect back to this idea that the arm, hand, and fingers all work together for each movement on the left side of the cello. One way to test if your cello left hand setup is serving you, or if it's causing some of these mistakes, is to check your tone, even simply by pitching your cello. So if you set up your cello hand on the D string and you cling that inside of the string and then roll the arm weight down, remember the thumb we don't even need for this. You're just using that arm weight to pull the string into the fingerboard, and you pluck that note, it should make a resonant ringing sound. And you know that there's a little bit of trouble, a little bit of issues happening if you get this type of a sound. See how it's thuddy and not resonant. So I'm going to show you the correct type of sound. See how the ring continues on for a long time. And then here is a thudding type of sound. And I'm making this sound by squeezing my hand, which is what we don't want. So if you are an adult beginner cellist and you are experiencing any or all of these problems, my recommendation to you would be to go back to your foundational left hand setup. And what do you think? Do you want a follow-up video on how to set up your left hand positioning? Comment yes and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss it when it comes out. And if you want help setting up your cello foundations, download my blueprint, my adult beginner cello blueprint, to get you started with the right healthy habits to avoid tension and avoid mistakes off the bat. See you next time.